Most parents think children are reacting to what's happening right now, but often, children are reacting to something much deeper, a missed moment of connection, an overwhelmed nervous system, a feeling they don't yet have words for. And this is something many Japanese parents seem to understand almost instinctively. Not because they have perfect children, and not because children in Japan never struggle emotionally, but because many Japanese parents approach emotions differently from the very beginning, especially the difficult ones. Imagine this moment. Your child suddenly bursts into tears because you gave them the blue cup instead of the green one. As an adult, it feels irrational, tiny, exhausting. Part of you wants to say, it's just a cup. But to a young child, it was never just the cup. It was expectation, control, predictability. And when those things suddenly change, a child's nervous system reacts before logic has time to catch up. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings adults have about children. We assume children overreact because they are dramatic. But most of the time, children react strongly because their emotional brain develops earlier than their regulation system. In other words, they feel deeply, long before they can manage those feelings calmly. And Japanese parenting often responds to this reality in surprisingly gentle ways. In many Western homes, emotional moments quickly become behavioral problems. The child cries loudly in public. The parent feels pressure. People are watching. Embarrassment rises. So the focus shifts towards stopping the behavior fast. Calm down. Stop crying. You're fine. But many Japanese parents tend to focus somewhere else first. Connection before correction. Instead of immediately controlling the behavior, they stabilize the emotion underneath it. A mother may kneel beside the child quietly. A father may lower his voice instead of raising it. The goal is not to win the moment. The goal is to help the child return to emotional balance. And this matters more than most people realize, because children learn emotional regulation from borrowed calm, not from commands. A child's nervous system actually mirrors the emotional state of nearby adults. When an adult becomes louder, sharper, more emotionally reactive, the child's stress system rises too. But when an adult stays emotionally steady, the child's brain slowly begins matching that steadiness. This is one reason calm parenting can feel strangely powerful, not because it instantly stops behavior, but because it teaches the nervous system what calm feels like. And children remember emotional patterns far more than verbal lessons. There's another subtle thing Japanese parents often understand. Feelings themselves are not the enemy. In many Western environments, difficult emotions are treated almost like interruptions. Crying is inconvenient. Anger feels disrespectful. Frustration becomes something to quickly fix. But emotions are not signs of failure. They are information. A child who suddenly becomes clingy may not be manipulative. They may feel emotionally uncertain. A child who becomes aggressive after school may not be bad. They may have spent the entire day holding themselves together socially, and by the time they return home, their emotional energy collapses. Interestingly, many Japanese parenting approaches quietly expect emotions to move in waves, not disappear instantly, which changes how adults react. Instead of demanding immediate emotional control, they stay present while the feeling passes. And this creates something powerful inside children: emotional safety. A child who feels emotionally safe does not need to hide their feelings from their parents. That changes long-term behavior more than punishment often does, because children who fear emotional rejection become skilled at hiding emotions, not regulating them.
There's a story child psychologists sometimes share about emotional development. Two children fall while running. One parent reacts with panic immediately.
Oh my gosh, are you okay? The other parent stays calm,
Moves closer quietly, waits for the child's reaction before escalating emotionally. Very often, the child mirrors the adult response.
because children look to adults to decide how dangerous situations feel. And many Japanese parents are surprisingly aware of this emotional modeling. They understand that adult reactions shape child reactions. This doesn't mean ignoring emotions. It means not emotionally flooding the moment. Another important difference appears in how mistakes are handled.
Imagine a child accidentally breaking something valuable. Many parents instantly focus on the object. What were you doing? How many times have I told you? But in many Japanese households, the emotional lesson often matters more than the punishment. The child may be guided toward awareness.
How do you think that affected everyone? Notice the difference. The focus shifts from fear to reflection.
And reflection develops internal responsibility much more effectively than shame, because shame usually teaches children one thing: hide mistakes. But emotional awareness teaches something deeper: understand impact. And children who understand emotional impact often become more considerate naturally. There's also something interesting about emotional independence. Many people think emotional closeness means constantly entertaining children or solving every problem for them.
But Japanese parenting often balances closeness with quiet trust. Children are allowed moments of discomfort, moments of boredom, moments of figuring things out socially, not because adults are emotionally distant, but because they trust the child's ability to grow through manageable struggle.
This is important because emotional resilience is not built by avoiding all discomfort. It's built by surviving small discomforts while feeling supported.
A child who never experiences frustration can't build frustration tolerance. And frustration tolerance becomes one of the strongest predictors of emotional stability later in life. Another thing Japanese parents often understand is the emotional power of routine.
Children feel calmer when life feels predictable. Simple rituals matter more than adults realize. Eating together,
Cleaning together, walking the same route home, bedtime patterns.
these routines quietly reduce stress inside a child's nervous system because predictability creates safety, and safety changes behavior. Many behavioral struggles are actually nervous system struggles in disguise. A child who feels overstimulated often looks disobedient. A child who feels emotionally disconnected may suddenly become oppositional. A child who feels chronically rushed may become emotionally reactive over tiny things. And this is where modern parenting sometimes becomes difficult. Many families today live in constant emotional urgency.
Hurry up, get ready, we're late.
Not now, later. Adults are overwhelmed. Children absorb that atmosphere, and emotional tension becomes the emotional climate of the home. But many Japanese parenting environments intentionally slow certain moments down, especially moments involving care, meals, greetings, and transitions. And slowing down changes emotional regulation more than most parents expect, because calm is contagious. But so is stress. There's another powerful difference in how adults speak to children emotionally. Instead of labeling the child, Japanese parenting often focuses on the situation itself. That choice hurts someone. This protects the child's identity while still correcting behavior. And identity matters enormously in emotional development. Children eventually become the stories they repeatedly hear about themselves. A child constantly called difficult may begin acting difficult automatically. A child treated like a capable, thoughtful person often slowly grows into that role. And perhaps this is one of the deepest things Japanese parenting understands. Children are still becoming themselves.
Which means adults must be careful not to freeze them inside temporary behavior, because today's tantrum is not your child's permanent personality. Today's emotional outburst is not proof you failed as a parent.
Children are developing in motion, slowly, emotionally, imperfectly. There's also something many parents quietly feel guilty about: losing patience.
Every parent does eventually, even calm parents, even emotionally aware parents.
And interestingly, Japanese parenting does not necessarily expect perfection from adults either. Repair matters more than perfection. A parent who returns after conflict, who reconnects, who softens their voice later, teaches something extremely important.
Relationships can recover after difficult emotions. That lesson stays with children for life. Because emotionally secure children are not children who never experience conflict. They are children who learn that connection survives conflict. And maybe this is the quiet truth underneath so much of Japanese parenting philosophy. Children behave better when they feel emotionally understood, not emotionally controlled. Because underneath nearly every difficult behavior, there is usually an unmet emotional need: connection, rest, predictability, attention, safety, autonomy. And when adults become curious about the feeling underneath behavior, everything begins changing. The child feels less like an opponent and more like a human being having a hard moment. That shift alone changes the emotional atmosphere of a family. So, the next time your child melts down over something small, pause for a second before reacting. Ask yourself, what might my child be feeling right now that they cannot explain yet? That question may change your parenting more than any discipline technique ever could. Because children rarely need adults who control every emotion perfectly. What they truly need are adults who help emotions feel safe enough to understand.